We are taught to read scripture as a record of things that already happened, but the Quran describes itself as a living reminder, an active mathematical field. It is an eternal memory tesseract, a structure where every verse is a face and every reading is a rotation. Entering physical life means entering a state of extreme density. From the moment we are born, our consciousness is subjected to a powerful downward pull, a drag created by the friction of a finite material world. The book defines this spiritual gravity as tagut. It is the cumulative weight of our biological lineages, tribal pride, and material obsessions. It is the force that anchors us to the earth and prevents upward movement. Under this weight, human existence becomes a closed loop of entropy. Without a way to break the pull, the soul remains trapped in the friction of survival, repeating the same failures until the system eventually breaks down. We can see this gravitational collapse in the historical patterns of our ancestors. The most striking example is the golden calf, where a people in the desert suddenly lost their connection to the unseen. They were offered the weightless light of revelation, but they chose a localized physical substitute. They took their worldly wealth, their ornaments, and melted them into a heavy, literal mass that they could see and touch. This is the same mechanism that trapped Adam. By reaching for the forbidden tree and attempting to justify his own ego, he added mass to his state. That attachment created the first spiritual friction, grounding him in the finite. Escaping this loop requires a change in our fundamental geometry. To stop decaying, the soul must transition from its localized physical volume into the infinite container of the divine throne. But the physics of the earth are rigid. To move from the finite to the infinite, a toll must be paid. The system requires a calculated surrender of mass to achieve a higher state. To map a world that splits into dualities, tests those dualities, and then returns to a single source, we need a specific kind of math. We use a cubic function, the simplest equation capable of modeling a wave that bends and returns to its origin. The Mother Book maps this cubic return through the 4 specific directional vectors found in verse 57:4, the things that penetrate the earth, the things that emerge from it, the things that descend from heaven, and the things that ascend. To align with that ascending vector, the soul must achieve escape velocity. Mathematically, this is only possible if the mass of the ego, our attachment to worldly control, is shed. This is the operational definition of sacrifice. It isn't a symbolic ritual. It is the necessary jettisoning of earthly weight that allows the soul to finally move against the pull of gravity. Ibrahim was placed in a towering fire, the maximum expression of physical friction and heat. In standard physics, this density would consume him instantly, but Ibrahim had already paid the toll. By willingly offering to sacrifice his biological lineage and earthly dynasty, he had severed his heaviest mass. He was no longer anchored to the Father's way. Because Ibrahim had shed his material attachments, the fire lost its object to burn. The destructive energy could no longer interact with him, and his immediate environment became cool and safe. Ibrahim successfully moved beyond the localized laws of the earth. By surrendering his biological claim, he entered the protected eternal field of the divine, where the fire's nature was forced to change. Ibrahim then asks to see the mechanics of resurrection. He wants to know how a system that has completely collapsed and scattered can ever be brought back to its source. The response is a geometric demonstration. Ibrahim is told to take 4 birds, living stand-ins for the 4 directional vectors of the 574 engine. Each bird represents one of the 4 trajectories that power the universe. He is commanded to place parts of these birds on separate, distant hills. This is a state of maximum entropy, physical separation so complete that the original form is unrecognizable. This is the ultimate test of the book's memory. Can the variables of a life be reconstructed even after they have been scattered across the physical dimensions of the earth? When Ibrahim calls to them, the activation sequence begins. Because he has already demonstrated the surrender of his earthly mass, the gravity of the hills no longer holds the fragments. The birds do not walk back, they fly. They are pulled by the magnetic attraction of the Rahman singularity, effortlessly bypassing the friction of the terrain through the physics of the return. This same cycle of collapse and reemergence is written across the entire universe. NASA's gamma-ray maps show us these high-energy engines in real time, filtering out entropy to preserve the system's core. You are standing inside this same computation. The cubic return isn't an ancient story. It is the algorithm currently running your existence. The question is whether you will use your reason to wake up and initiate your own ascent. The center of the universe remains fixed. By gripping the book and shedding the mass of the finite, you align yourself with the ascending vector. The return home has already begun.